Gigi Wu was 36-year-old Taiwanese hiker and social media personality who captured the hearts of many with her fearless spirit and love for the outdoors. Her father died suddenly, and that moment became the turning point of her life. She quit her job, abandoned routine, and threw herself into the only place that gave her peace, the mountains. Climbing became her escape, her healing, her way to feel alive again. And soon the quiet girl from Taiwan was about to become known around the world as the Bikini Hiker. It began on Jade Mountain, Taiwan's highest peak. She joined a group climb where a playful bet forced her to pose in a bikini she had carried in her pack. At first, she was embarrassed, but standing on that icy summit in bright colors, fragile yet fearless, she felt something powerful. That single dare turned into a ritual. On every summit after that, she would slip into a bikini, not to show off her body, but to celebrate freedom, joy, and defiance in the face of nature's vastness. By 2019, she had around 20,000 to 30,000 followers across her Instagram account. But fame always brings critics. Was she reckless, risking her life for nothing more than likes? Were those bright bikini photos acts of courage, or just dangerous stunts to feed an online audience? January 19, 2019 was a day nobody expected. She set out on another climb into Taiwan's central mountain range. The skies looked calm. The day seemed ordinary, but then one slip, and she was trapped in a narrow gorge, unable to move. From the freezing shadows, she called again and again, begging for rescue. Yet when the rescuers finally reached her, it was already too late. Gigi Wu was born in Taiwan in 1981. Taiwan, though small, is a land of dramatic landscapes. Nearly 70% of it is mountainous, with lush forests that climb into jagged peaks, often cloaked in mist. To grow up in Taiwan is to see mountains every day. For many, they are just part of the horizon, but for Gigi, they were always calling. Even as a little girl, she had a strange ritual. While other children played with dolls, she would collect small pebbles and pine cones on her family hikes and line them up on her bedroom windowsill, as if building her own miniature mountain range. On weekends, while her friends begged their parents to take them to the city malls, Gigi would tug at her mother's sleeve, asking instead to go to the forest trails. She said the air there felt more like home. To most children, the mountains were just part of the horizon. To Gigi, they were alive, calling her higher, whispering promises no one else could hear. No one expected that one day those same mountains would answer back, with a horror no one could have foreseen. Her path to becoming a mountaineer wasn't straightforward. In her 20s, she hiked occasionally, but not seriously. Gigi studied fashion design at a university in Taipei. She was fascinated by colors and fabrics from an early age. After finishing her studies, she worked as a photo model. She lived like many young women in Taiwan. But one accident changed everything. In 2014, her world changed forever. That spring, her father passed away from a stroke. Gigi was the only one at his side in those final hours. The same father who had once taken her to rivers to swim, who had shown her how to find snails in the mud, who had been her first guide into nature. His sudden death left her shaken. She quit her job, turned down an offer to work in China, and poured her time, her savings, and her grief into the mountains. Hiking wasn't just recreation anymore. It was survival, a way to carry her father's memory into every peak. During one of her early hikes, she slipped and fell into a valley. One wrong step, one patch of loose gravel, and suddenly she was tumbling into the void. The world spun, rocks tearing at her skin, branches snapping against her body, until she finally struck the ground with a force that knocked the air from her lungs. The injuries were brutal. Her legs and ribs were battered, her skin cut open in deep gashes. She was stranded until fellow hikers managed to get help. The hospital became her new mountain. Weeks of immobility, surgeries and scars that stitched her body like a map of pain. Nights were the hardest, lying awake, replaying the fall in her mind, feeling again the helpless weight of gravity dragging her down. For most people, that would have been the end. A warning carved into the body that said, "Never climb again." Friends and even doctors told her to give up hiking, to find something safer. But for Gigi, it was the opposite. That fall taught her something profound: how fragile life is, how easily it can be taken away, how quickly everything can vanish in a single misstep. And in that realization, something shifted inside her. She didn't want to live cautiously, counting every risk, avoiding every edge. She wanted to embrace the edge. She wanted to taste the beauty hidden inside danger. Later, she would say, "After that fall, I decided every moment is precious. If I can climb, I will climb. If I can live, I will live." Instead of fearing her scars, she wore them like medals, silent proof that she had already faced death once and chosen to keep going. What broke others only made her more determined. And with that determination, she set out on a path that no one expected. A path that would make her famous and ultimately lead her into the unknown. After recovering from her injury, Gigi Wu met Alex Yang. He eased her recovery through friendship and partnership. Together, they reached Jade Mountain, the highest peak in Northeast Asia, as part of a climbing group organized by a travel agency. The meeting with Alex was fateful. He wasn't just her partner and friend. He was also the first to witness a moment on that mountain, a simple dare, a playful choice that would quietly spark the ritual which later made her famous. And in the end, Alex would play a far greater role. At the very moment when Gigi's life balanced between survival and death. In 2015, she began hiking seriously. One climb turned into another, and soon she was dedicating nearly every weekend, every holiday, every free moment to the mountains. Her dream was clear: to stand on the summits of 100 peaks across Taiwan. Each mountain brought her closer to that goal, each one its own battle against exhaustion, cold, and fear. Reaching that number wasn't just an achievement, it was a dream turned real, proof that an ordinary woman could push beyond limits most never dare to touch. And with every summit, she had a ritual: not planting a flag, not raising her fists. Instead, she would carefully slip into something playful: a bikini. She would stand at the peak, fragile against the horizon, and smile. Why bikinis? To some, it seemed like a stunt, but Gigi explained, "The bikini is not about being sexy. It's about freedom. It's about joy. The mountains are beautiful, and I just wanted to bring a little beauty with me." The ritual was more than playful. It was symbolic. To stand exposed on top of a mountain was to acknowledge her vulnerability, her smallness in the face of nature's immensity. She wasn't conquering the mountain, she was honoring it. Her photos spread quickly through Taiwan's hiking community, then onto Instagram and Facebook. The nickname Bikini Hiker stuck. By 2019, she had around 20,000 to 30,000 followers across her Instagram account. Her news outlets took notice. BBC, Taipei Times, New York Post, and others featured her story. To her, it felt surreal. She wasn't seeking fame. She wasn't selling products or chasing endorsements. She was simply sharing her truth. But the world found meaning in that truth. The bikinis were more than clothes. They were her signature, her rebellion, her joy. The world watched in awe as her legend spread across continents. But no one expected that the very image that made her famous would be forever tied to her final, tragic chapter. At first, her mountaintop photos were nothing extraordinary, just a young woman with messy hair, baggy hiking pants, and a tired smile after hours of climbing. But over time, something changed. Gigi began slipping into vibrant swimsuits at the peaks, styling her hair, and striking poses that were playful, vulnerable, unforgettable. With every photo, her popularity grew. The bright colors against endless skies, the contrast of fragility and strength, it captured people's attention, and soon thousands were following her journey. But fame always brings critics. Some scoffed at her ritual, calling it reckless, shallow, even disrespectful to the mountains. They accused her of risking her life just for attention, of turning sacred peaks into nothing more than a stage for vanity. Others complained her colorful poses distracted from the seriousness of mountaineering. Despite the noise, her legend only grew. In Taiwan, hiking isn't just a hobby, it's part of the national identity. The island is home to over 260 peaks above 3,000 meters. To scale them is a rite of passage. The mountains are seen as both a challenge and a spiritual place. Hikers often speak of them with reverence, calling them teachers. The weather is unpredictable, the terrain unforgiving. Every climb demands respect. Gigi became a symbol of this new generation of Taiwanese hikers. A blend of tradition, enduring hardship, respecting nature, and modern expression. By 2018, she had conquered more than 100 peaks across Taiwan, a milestone many hikers never reach in a lifetime. But Gigi didn't stop there. Her next ambition was even greater, to climb all 260 mountains above 3,000 meters in Taiwan's Central Mountain Range. Each one represented not just a physical challenge, but a piece of her homeland's soul. For her, it wasn't about numbers. It was about devotion. In January 2019, Gigi prepared for another adventure. This time, Gigi Wu planned a solo 25-day trek through Taiwan's Central Mountain Range. She was following part of the Batongguan Historic Trail. It is considered one of the most challenging long-distance trails in Taiwan. For Gigi, it was just another climb. She had done this before, many times before, but no one expected that this day would become her last. On January 18th, she carried food, proper gear, a satellite phone, and her bikinis. She had done this before. She knew the risks. When Gigi began her climb that January morning, the weather gave no warning. The sky was clear. The air was crisp, cold, but still bearable. It felt like the perfect day to be in the mountains. But in Taiwan's Central Mountain Range, calm never lasts. By afternoon, the winds grew fierce. Fog crept through the valleys, and the temperature began to drop, colder and colder with every passing hour. But on January 20th, disaster struck. While navigating a steep ravine, she slipped and fell more than 20 meters, around 65 feet, into a remote gorge. The fall shattered her legs, yet even then, she didn't panic. She pulled out her satellite phone and called her friend, Alex Yang. Calmly, she told him she had fallen, that her legs were shattered, that she could not move. She gave him her exact coordinates. Alex immediately contacted emergency services, relaying her location and condition. Gigi believed rescue was coming. She believed she would climb again, but the mountains had other plans. The National Airborne Service Corps dispatched helicopters, but the gorge was too narrow to land. Ground crews set out, but the terrain was brutal and the weather turned. Fog thickened, winds rose, and temperatures plunged. Hours passed. Day turned into night. For 28 hours, Gigi lay in that ravine, injured, trapped, freezing. The temperature dropped from 5 to -2 degrees Celsius as night fell. With the wind chill, it felt closer to -7 degrees Celsius. After the fall, Gigi called Alex again. Her voice was steady but strained. She asked for help. She said the cold was seeping into her body, making it harder to endure. Yet even then, she tried to sound strong, as if she believed rescue would come. Or perhaps she only wanted Alex to believe it. Perhaps she only imagined that hope herself. Hypothermia is cruel. It starts with shivering, then numbness. Eventually, the body feels warm, even as it shuts down. Rescuers fought desperately to reach her. They knew she was alive, but time was slipping away. When they finally reached her on January 21st, it was too late. She had passed, not from the fall, but from the cold. She was only 36. Her funeral and burial were handled privately by her family in Taiwan. Out of respect, nobody never recorded the exact location. News of her death spread like wildfire. In Taiwan, people mourned as if they had lost a friend. Social media turned into a memorial. Her posts, once filled with adventure, now overflowed with messages of sorrow and gratitude. Her story reached global headlines. BBC, CNN, New York Post, The Guardian, all covered the death of the Bikini Hiker. After her passing, other women hikers began taking summit photos in bikinis, not for fame, but as a tribute. It was their way of honoring Gigi Wu, carrying on the colorful ritual she had created. Each photo was a reminder that joy, courage, and freedom do not die with the climber. They live on in those who follow. After her death, people wrote many critical comments on her Instagram. They said she was reckless, chasing attention, and paid the price. But her friends defended her fiercely. They said she knew the risks. She accepted them. She lived life more fully than most ever dare. Gigi Wu's final Instagram post came just over a week before her accident, a radiant shot of a summit in a bikini on January 9th, 2019. Looking back, that image became a haunting encore of the spirit she carried, just days before the mountains took her. The story of Gigi Wu teaches us that life is fragile, but also that it becomes meaningful only when we dare to live it fully. When she lost her father in 2014, she turned her grief into strength, escaping into the mountains. That moment teaches us that even in our darkest pain, we can still find a path forward. When she suffered a terrible fall into a valley, leaving her body scarred and broken, she chose not to quit. She carried her scars like medals of survival and kept moving forward, determined to continue chasing her dream of reaching 100 peaks. When she stood on icy peaks in nothing but a bikini, she reminded the world that freedom means being true to yourself, even when others don't understand. That moment teaches us that joy and courage often look different to everyone, and that's okay. And when she fell again in 2019, waiting 28 hours in the freezing cold before rescue came too late, it became a final, heartbreaking lesson. That moment teaches us that safety and preparation are just as important as courage, because even the strongest passion must respect the power of the mountains. Gigi once wrote, "You can't control the mountains. You can only learn to respect them. Every climb is a gift. Every summit is a miracle."